Many Gulf states have rallied behind the U.S. and the upcoming summit in Bahrain, causing a divide with the Palestinians who are vehemently opposed to the peace deal and the economic conference. Will the Palestinians' hardline stance finally cause a disconnect with the Gulf states? And will it pave the way for warming Arab state ties with Israel? Here to discuss this issue via Skype is Dr. Martin Sherman, director of the Israel Institute of Strategic Studies. Welcome.
Thank you for having me back again.
So let's jump right in. The Palestinians are opposing the Bahrain summit and the deal of the century. How is this affecting their status or relationship with the Gulf states who have come on board?
Well, I think for quite some time now, the Palestinians have no longer been the flavor of the month in the Arab world. And I think in many ways the Arab world today is finding it has new priorities. And I think the Palestinian issue is being sidelined. So I don't think that the Arab states would give great priority to fulfilling in the Palestinian demands. But I'm not sure that the diplomatic relations, which you mentioned, or perhaps future diplomatic relations with the Gulf states, is such a high priority for Israel. It depends what you have to pay for them. You know, Israel's done pretty well without those relationships. We've got a GDP which has surpassed Britain, France, and Japan, which would have been unthinkable long ago. So, I'm not sure what the diplomatic relations would mean, what price Israel would have to pay for them. But I think in many ways, in some ways, the Palestinian claims are correct. You can't really jumpstart this through the economy. I mean, it's really political economy 101 for any freshman who knows that to have a functioning and successful economic system, you need a successful and functioning political, i.e. government system that can define, regulate, and protect, for instance, property rights. Who's going to do that with this Trump plan? It's completely unclear. And until the political issues are resolved, I don't think that even the best goodwill economically is going to have any traction.
Now, do you foresee that the Gulf states might disconnect from the Palestinian narrative once and for all?
I'd be doubtful if they do that, but certainly publicly at this stage. But I certainly think they may give it a much lower priority than they have now. As I said before, they have different and more urgent priorities, especially vis-a-vis the conflict with the Shia world. So I don't think that the Palestinians would be very high on their agenda anyway.
Now, you mentioned this. The Bahrain summit is taking place at a time with an emboldened Iran, a much more pressing issue to the Gulf states than the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So how does this factor into the equation?
Well, I think it factors in the fact that the Gulf states are willing for some sort of rapprochement with Israel, even at the moment, if it's unofficial. I think that their own self-national interest is far more important to them than the prospect of a Palestinian state, which may even be amenable to Iran. But as I said before, I think the Palestinians have a point when they say, pushing the economy forward is a little bit like putting the horse before the cart. Because, and as I say, unless you define who is going to have the sovereign authority over all these economic projects, it means nothing.
Now, you mentioned warming ties between Israel and several Arab countries, Saudi Arabia, Oman, and others, just to give an example. And this is partly due to Iran. But will the U.S. plan help move those ties along, perhaps even towards full diplomatic ties?
Well, I would counsel caution on this. I think, that most of this rapprochement is based on a balance between the fear of Iran and the aversion to Israel. And as long as the fear of Iran is greater than the aversion to Israel, this rapprochement will continue. As soon as anything acts to either diminish or abolish the fear of Iran, I think the impetus for the rapprochement may well vanish. So I would caution. I would caution about being too optimistic about this, and I would be very reluctant to base any long-term future strategy of Israel on any warming up of the relations with the Gulf state. I think we should take advantage of whatever we can in the short run.
So it's no secret that there have been warming ties between Israel and several Arab countries. You mentioned Saudi Arabia, Oman, and others, for example, partly due to Iran. But will the U.S. plan help move along those ties, perhaps even towards full diplomatic ties?
Well, I would be very cautious in giving much credence to future relations with the Sunni states. I think the impetus for the current warming of relations is a balance between the fear of Iran and the aversion to Israel. As long as the fear of Iran is greater than the aversion to Israel, this warming will continue, the rapprochement will continue. If anything comes about which can diminish or eliminate the fear of Iran, I think the impetus for this rapprochement would also disappear. For years, the Arab public has been nurtured on a diet of hatred and adversity and an aversion towards Israel. I don't think that's going to disappear very quickly.
Well, Dr. Martin Sherman, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you for having me.